Welcome to Arts Talk TV. We're putting a spotlight on creativity. Hi, I'm Karina Lawrence and you're watching Arts Talk TV. We're here at the Academy of Music and Performing Arts, and it's one of Australia's leading tertiary providers in Surrey Hills, Sydney. The AMPA has been educating and inspiring young artists for over 30 years, providing the highest quality in music and performing arts degrees, including music production and composition, contemporary and classical music, music theatre, and dance performance such as contemporary, ballet, and jazz. AMPA seeks to leave a positive impact on the music and performing arts arena. I feel so privileged to introduce our next guest. With a doctorate in the creative arts and a faculty member of this fantastic facility, he is an author, a filmmaker, and a director. Please welcome to the show, Richard James Allen. Richard, it is so wonderful to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
I'm delighted and honoured to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Okay, now you also have a background in acting, choreography, and dance. You were born in Kempsey, New South Wales. Tell me, where did that obviously creative passion really start and begin for you?
I was born in Kempsey, but I actually lived the first 10 years of my life in Asia. So I was a bit of a sort of outside of the main culture, and I was always interested in cultural sites, religious sites, libraries, theatre, film. I was always sort of looking for something meaningful. When I had a chance to decide where I wanted to go into creative arts. I think I really love the discoveries that come along the way in the process. And depending on the kind of work you're doing, that can be a very long process, but it's really those moments when something reveals itself and you go, my God, that's what I'm really doing. And that can be sometimes by yourself if you're writing, or it can also be with another performer, or you just brainstorm something together and this sort of magic happens. It's really all about that kind of magical discovery for me.
Did you come from a family of creatives, so as to speak? Yeah,
pretty creative family. My brothers used to put on plays in the living room when I was young, and I was like, oh, they would put it, and I thought that was pretty cool. Books everywhere, and my mother was a journalist, and my father became a writer. So yeah, there was a lot of creativity in my household.
Had that influence. You're a first-class honours graduate from Sydney University, where you won the Chancellor's Award for Best Doctorate.
Actually, I was a first-class honours from Sydney, but at UTS, some years later, that's where I got the Chancellor's Award, which was pretty cool.
What an honour, hey?
Considering my thesis was about, multiple layers of creativity and how creativity can manifest across different platforms, and it was in the form of a labyrinth. I'm really honoured to get that because that was across the whole university, any doctorate anywhere, and I didn't even know it existed. So that was one of those lovely surprises. You go, oh my God.
You've taught at many tertiary institutions, such as NIDA and of course
AMPA,
AMPA.
Look, I'm really privileged to teach at AMPA, which is a wonderful school. It's got really dedicated staff and people who've had really great careers to teach, and I think that's really powerful. I teach in the dance and film stream. For many years worked as a choreographer and also filmmaker, and in particular bringing those two together. A lot of the time they don't know much about the history, so it's really exciting to sort of show the breadth of the history of dance and film, because even the word cinema comes from kini, which is movement. So the idea of movement and cinema are really born together right from the beginning. Even if they don't go on to make dance films, it helps them just become more media savvy. And today we have to communicate through content, and so just having those skills to work with.
Let's move into your performance side of your career. You were a finalist for the lead performance of the Nightmares Film Festival.
That sounds really good.
That was in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
That was for your portrayal of Hans in the psychological thriller Bloodshot Heart.
That's right, which has been streaming on SBS. Look, I love being an actor and I love being a dancer, and this was a particularly exciting opportunity for me as an actor because it is the story of someone who in a way gradually loses their grip on reality.
Wow.
And as an actor, the chance to inhabit a mind and then express its whole worldview is really exciting, and then the chance to inhabit a mind that is slowly degenerating and shifting is kind of amazing. So there are all these different fascinating kind of approaches to acting, and the one that's probably most famous is the method acting. One has to be extremely careful with method acting because it's basically drawing on your traumas and re-experiencing them. And on one level, that can also just wear out, because how many times can you draw on the same trauma if you're performing every night or something? So for the first performers who really discovered and embodied that, like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe and Marlon Brando, it was super destructive. Actually, I used a lot of work from Michael Chekhov technique, and he actually went through that first form and had a nervous breakdown from it and created a whole other form, which was to do with images, and that was one of the things I used for Hans. And it's great because you can just use internal images and drop into extreme states and then just step right out of them. And it's like, it's not affecting you, you're passing through that stage, and I think that's for me much healthier. I kind of saw every scene as a piece of choreography. So I had my whole choreography of the entire scene. And I was trying to embody the state at which that character was at physically and sort of within the space of the shot. And so it was very choreographic for me while also being psychological. You know, I often think of the director as like a vision controller. It's not like they're always just telling everyone what to do, but they are, or maybe a vision coordinator is a better word, because they've got to have an overall vision that every single person in the acting and crew have to work within, so that all of our work is really coordinated. You know, I can't be off here doing a comedy and someone's doing a tragedy. It's like we have to be calibrated. So, and the director's got to, and the producer as well, they've got to kind of bridge all those relationships. And a lot of the people on a big film never meet each other. So, you know, the sound designer or the editor might never meet the actors. So they have an idea that everyone's working towards. And then within that, I think, you know, directors can be incredibly helpful for actually giving feedback and adjustments, and they can also be helpful sometimes in just giving people the room to explore and develop their own ideas and then go, yeah, that's working, we'll pull that back a bit. So yeah.
So is it something that, like, say you've been cast as a role, you have your lines, your script, you go away, how much of it do you mentally prepare for, and I guess, you know, learn your lines and those sorts of things before you get on set?
Oh, you want to do as much preparation as possible before, sort of break down the script, as they say, so you like your actions and obstacles, but then on the day or in rehearsal, you have to be willing to throw that all away. You might be thinking you're doing it in a small room and you're doing it on a huge field. And also the other actor or performers are going to have an influence on that, and you can't be like, I'm doing my thing, you do whatever you want. It's got to be, and also your set and costumes and of the scene, of the character, of the, you know, things that I hadn't thought of before. That's really exciting. You were critically acclaimed reviews in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, the Observer, the Australian, and the Sydney Morning Herald, just to name a few. And your performances have been described as extraordinary, terrifying, and ferociously watchable. I mean, that's some beautiful feedback. That is some really nice feedback, isn't it? Well, you know, I like to fully commit to something. It's not, you know, sometimes I say to people, just remember when you watch that film, remember I'm this really nice person. That's not me over there. I'm acting, you know, and for it to be okay for the actor to go to places, and that's a real craft, that's a real skill, and that's the risk, and that's the risk, and I want to be able to do that, and I want to be able to be allowed to do that. Touching on your choreography, as a choreographer you have extensive track record of works for the stage, including commissioned dance works for New England Computer Arts Association in Boston, the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, travelled and enhanced in Dance North in Townsville, Australia, Dirty Feet in Sydney, and multiple pieces that was fast-tracked for New York City and Sydney, and also the Taz Dance in Launceston, where you were co-artistic director. How did that path begin? My father loved ice dancing from really young. I went like a couple of times a week and I did ice dancing class, which is basically like doing ballet on ice.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough, I have to say, for a kid, because it's like 3 or 4 hours and you're like 10 or something, and really get cold. So I didn't love it, but I did kind of get into the idea of the discipline and the beauty of it, and I sort of really looking for something else, and I started out doing karate.
Okay.
And karate was great because it had this sort of patterns, and I'm super flexible, but I really didn't like punching people and didn't really like being punched, and then I got into Tai Chi, but that was like too soft, a bit like the story of the 3 bears, too hard and then too soft. And then I found dance and it was just right. I studied in Australia. I did the Kinetic Energy Contemporary Dance course, which was one of the only courses before there was any AMPAs or anything like that. It was set up by a local company. Then I joined this wildly experimental dance theatre company based in Holland, and I lived in a houseboat. And I worked in this company which was kind of based on Pina Bausch and Peter Brook, the theatre director, Carolyn Carlson, a few other choreographers, sort of a mixture of these different elements, and that was very exciting. And at the same time I worked with a local dance company in Holland, and then I decided to focus primarily on dance. I went to New York. I really found my home in New York, but I got to study with literally, world leaders in ballet and contemporary and composition and theatre. And I always wanted to make my own work, so I formed my own company with partner Karen Perlman, and we created a company called That Was Fast, and we did shows in New York and toured all around the world from New York with what we call a cinematic blend of text and dance action. I was going to stay in America. I actually really loved it, but then my father got quite ill. And he had a stroke, and they said he'd never walk again. I was like, oh, here I am doing all this physical stuff, and I know he was super fit and walked. I knew I could help him, so I came back to Australia and taught him to walk again. And then my career ended up sort of shifting back to Australia, and that's when we took the job at TazDance. And then we came back after that to Sydney and created the physical TV company focusing on dance and film. We made this piece for Dance North, which was kind of amazing opportunity. They knew that we worked with text and dance. Cheryl Stock, the director, and Jean-Pierre Vos, the director of the local theatre company, which was actually the same director as who had been the director of my company in Holland, who'd moved out. And it was like, you can come to Townsville, you can stay in this hotel with a swimming pool, you can have access to these dancers, and you can have access to the theatre company, and all you have to do is make it about the 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Coral Sea. And we did this work called If War Were a Dance, because it was a big show with beautiful tunes from the 40s, and it was very moving. It had this whole story of this pilot who dies, he's looking for his lover, and it was just a really beautiful story with dance and acting and everything mixed together. It's so wonderful when someone gives you an opportunity to do something amazing.
At what point with your career did that really transitional? You as a director and a filmmaker of the critically acclaimed physical TV company alongside Karen Perlman, which is an international film production company based in Sydney, and you produce documentaries, dramas and dance films with that. So when was that established? Pretty early within the...
We had 3 companies that we were directors of. We were directors of That Was Fast, which was like for 10 years in New York, and then moving back to Australia towards the end, but mostly it was in New York. Then we took the job at TazDance for a couple of years. The physical TV company, oh my God, in 1997, it was in response to discussions we were having with the ABC. It was challenging to get the funding, though we did make one of those through the Australian Film and Television School, and we made one as a commission from the ABC called No Surrender, which was a collaboration with Indigenous artist Bernadette Waylong, who's a wonderful choreographer as well, and dancer as well, and actually made some of the signature work of Bangara. We didn't get to make the whole series, but then we kept the company name. It went developed from there. We started out making dance films, and then over time it expanded into what was then called new media, which I don't know if that even means anything anymore. But and then that expanded into documentary and drama. So now we do all of them, but we're still making dance films. So our most recent a project which just had a sneak preview at Acme, Breaking Plates, is a real mixture of dance, documentary and drama.
Yeah. And what platforms could viewers or people have a look at your incredible work?
Where those films generally premiering at the moment is at film festivals.
Okay.
Well, they used to go a lot onto ABC and SBS. That's shifted a bit recently, but we hope to come back to that. But so some of them you can watch right now just by looking up physical TV on YouTube and Vimeo and stuff.
For anybody that's sort of looking and going, I'd love to have a career, how do you get your films into those platforms, say on SBS or ABC?
Depends, but basically you need to get in touch with the commissioning editors and talk to them and show them your work and see if they're open to, I mean, we've had lovely relationships with commissioning editors in the past who've both commissioned work and purchased work. But it's not super easy. For example, I directed a feature film for ABC. It actually took 4 commissioning editors before we actually got the final green light. And there are certain kinds of initiatives and interests going on, and we were lucky because the idea of arts television was opening up at that time. Better to make sure you have a really good idea and then absolutely push it through from develop the idea fully and realize it fully and then get it out there fully. And that pattern is going to rise much higher, more likely to the top of consciousness than if you're doing a whole bunch of things and you're running around.
Okay, so in regards to awards, you're a finalist for an actor, which is the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Award, and it's award-winning producer for the Atom.
Yeah, we've actually had a whole bunch of those. We've got, I think, 5 of those awards, and some of them I was a producer and some I was director.
Okay.
It's actually a wonderful award to win because you're really being judged by people who teach history of cinema, so they really understand it.
Phenomenal.
And so I'm really proud of those.
Yeah, okay, so now let's move into, you're obviously clearly a beautiful expression of the English language as a writer and also poet.
Yeah. Look, I've been writing poetry since I was 14. I started writing diaries when I was 10 or something, and then gradually I stopped being interested in writing exactly what happened. I started writing about it and images. So I sort of identified since I was 14 that I really wanted to be a poet. Altogether I've published 13 books.
Wow.
One of those is an anthology of performance texts, and one of them is a collaboration where Karen Perelman wrote essays and I wrote some poems. But still, it's quite a lot of books of poetry and some fiction in there as well. I've also found that then I can take that and adapt it into work for the stage, for film, for radio, for interweaving with composers and stuff. And that's been really exciting as well. So that sort of takes the ideas within the poetry to a whole other platform and often inspires choreography and filmmaking and stuff.
I was going to say that, do you feel that it's the different layers of expression or the depths of expression that comes out through your writing?
I think so. Finding where a certain idea can best express itself or can develop its expression,
Text Messages from the Universe, and a film adaptation of that, which you did write, obviously, was choreographed and directed for the Physical TV company, and that was screened in different festivals in France, Spain, Ireland, Sweden, Poland, Russia, Italy, India, Australia, Nepal, and Turkey.
It started out as one of those commissions from France where I got this thing of we want to make a 13-hour dance film to celebrate the anniversary of the birth of ballet with Louis XIV. And then they got 13 different composers around the world to create an hour of music, and then asked 13 different dance filmmakers. So I was the one from Australia. And so I kind of went back to that text, which I had been trying to finish for a long time because it was very challenging and also kind of a responsibility to work on something that big, which ties into some of those profound ideas. And I wanted to do it in a good way, so I was really struggling. But this created a framework for me to kind of finish that text, and then I made this wild film where the text is on the screen, there are dancers floating through kind of representing these figures from the Bardo. We created this book which actually has images from the film and the text, so it's sort of and then I thought, we did the launch where you come into the theatre, you get given the book, and the book has the text and images, and then the film starts and you're sort of holding what you're seeing, and I'm there in a small pool of light beside reading it, so you've got it in your hands, you're hearing it, you're seeing it, you can choose. It's a fully immersive experience of like going into this alternative reality, and then when it's over you get to take it home and kind of go further for yourself. It's pretty tough having a career in the arts, and you know, if you just imagine it's going to go a certain way and that's the way you've been told it's going to go, it may only go that far. And I've seen some of my friends who are like, why have you retired? Oh, because I've reached this age. And I'm like, well, who told you that? Yeah. Recognizing opportunities when they come and making the most of them and really being grateful. If someone gives you an opportunity, that's a massive gift. Don't take it for granted. And also keeping an eye on what could be a way forward and not imagining, you know, it's going to keep evolving. Technology's evolving, platforms of distribution are evolving, the world's evolving, the issues that concern us are like literally shifting day by day. So how can you make a contribution to that is actually of value, you know? That's your job, not just to be like, I do my stuff. It's like, how can I be useful and of value in this changing landscape?
We have a fun little segment on Arts Talk TV. Yeah, it's called the Shutter Speed Challenge. Okay. So what was the last song you listened to?
Old Man River.
Okay, what's your favorite thing about being creative?
The moment of creativity, the moment of like, oh my God.
It's happening.
Yes, it's happening, and this thing is more than I thought. It's something else. There's something underneath it. There's something.
The layering.
Yeah, the layering. Yeah. It's like.
Person you'd most like to meet?
David Bowie, but he's dead now.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, David Bowie. What would you ask him?
I think I'd just say thank you, because he was a huge inspiration for me. And I know when he died, everyone was like, oh my God, I love David Bowie. When I was a kid, he was an example of someone doing something really different and outside the authentic and outside the box. And I didn't know anybody who liked David Bowie.
What's the last piece of art that really affected you?
There's a film called Never Look Away, which is a German film. I think is one of the most extraordinary films I've ever seen.
If you had to label creativity with a colour, what colour would you choose?
Purple.
What would you miss most about the arts?
The deeper levels of truth and resonance that it reveals, beyond the obvious that we see and beyond the frames that we're given and asked to just stick inside.
What's on your bedside table?
The biography of the Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa.
What chore do you most dislike doing?
Taxes and grant applications.
In one word, what does art or the arts mean to you?
Liberation.
Richard, seriously, it has been wonderful sitting across from you
pleasure. Thank you.
Intertwining, and I'm very inspired, and I think you're an extraordinary gift to the world of creativity with everything that you've shared to date, and I can't wait to see where else and what else comes out of your incredible, extraordinary concept.
That's very kind of you. Thank you for the really interesting, insightful questions and conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on Arts TV.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.